Here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts. Hey, Pete, ever wonder what Steven Spielberg's favorite film is?
You know, Andy, I've heard he loves classics like Lawrence of Arabia, Meet Me in St. Louis.
Imagine chatting with him about why those films resonate with him so much.
That's exactly what we do on our podcast, Movies We Like. We've had incredible guests like actress Dee Wallace, cinematographer Eric Messerschmidt, director Steve Miner, and former Disney animators Tom and Tony Bancroft.
They share their favorite films and the impact they've had on their careers, offering fascinating insights into the craftsmanship and storytelling techniques that make these movies so special.
If you're curious about the magic behind the scenes, subscribe to Movies We Like from True Story FM on your favorite podcast app. New episodes are released on the fourth Monday of each month with early access for our members.
Join us on Movies We Like as we explore the movies we all like with the people who make them.
And Stephen, our people will call your people. Let's make this happen, puppy.
Subscribe today.
What's up, most excellent friends?
It's Christy and Nathan from the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast.
It's a podcast where a filmmaker and a comedian
And their most excellent guests,
adventure their way through the 80s movies we think we love
or might have missed,
with our grown-up eyes to see how they hold up.
join us for delightful discussion,
Rollicking recaps.
ratings, and deep-cut recommendations.
Plus, members get some extra fun chit-chat with the hosts after the show.
Download the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast today at truestory.fm.
Or find it wherever the finest podcasts are stored.
And do remember to keep the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast motto in mind.
Be excellent to each other and...
Party on.
Party on, dudes.
Coming up on The Devil's Details, falling action. Get it? Because they've sinned and fallen. Paradise Lost, Book 10. Good morning, Star Lovelies, and welcome to another episode of The Devil's Details, a show where we dig up, decipher, dissect, and deconstruct the many forms of the devil. One of my names is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I sometimes go by Keenan Diaz.
And we're just two lost souls hitchhiking down the highway to hell. And just a reminder, today's episode was originally recorded as bonus content for our first podcast, The Exorcist Minute, so I think we should hand it over. Take it away, past Lester and Keenan. And today we are covering Book 10 of John Milton's epic poem, Paradise Lost. Last time, you'll remember, Satan is back, baby! He's been all around the world, la 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 la. He's been everywhere, man.
Pandemonium, Tigers Euphrates. I can't do it as fast as
Right. But in the end, he returns to Eden singing "I Couldn't Stay Away From You," made popular by Ella Fitzgerald and the Four Knights.
I don't know that one.
I don't either. It's another Mission Impossible where Satan re-enters Eden by way of a secret passage in the Tigris River, which again has since been removed. Please do not go diving in the Tigris River in search of the entrance to Eden. But yeah, he rises from a spring near the Tree of Life.
Or the Tree of Knowledge.
Or the Tree of Knowledge. Leopards, panthers. He rises from the spring and he says, "Missed me?" Because he changed into mist.
Lester, I just cannot reiterate that enough that people listen to this, that you are being recorded.
The devil maybe do it. But yeah, Tree of Knowledge, whatever. So Satan creeps along the ground until he finds the serpent asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, hey, buddy. Hey. No, don't wake up. I just want to ask you a quick question. Listen, do you want to orchestrate the fall of all mankind? No, don't wake up. It's okay. I'm doing it for a school paper. Yes? Okay, that was a yes. Okay, thanks. Love you. And he possesses the snake, but doesn't wake him up, which I thought was courteous.
It's very nice. What a gentlemanly thing to do.
Yeah, right? The next day, Adam and Eve are having the world's first argument, and Keenan and I prove to be terrible debate judges because we just keep giving both of them 10 out of 10. Right up until Adam's final argument about obedience. Cringe. And the game goes to Eve. She goes off alone and meets a talking snake whom we know is Satan in disguise, like literally in a disguise. And that disguise is an innocent, unsuspecting snake. He's like in disguise.
Lest.
And he is apparently bouncing along like a bed spring. Prince of Darkness, folks. But yeah, Eve is shocked to see a talking snake, and she asks the snake where he gained this amazing power, and Satan in the snake snickers to himself and leads her to the tree of knowledge. And in this book about arguments, he makes several arguments for eating the fruit, which Eve eventually does. Satan skedaddles, and unable to bear the thought of life without Eve, Adam also eats the fruit, but it gets stuck in his throat, and that's why we have Adam's apples. No.
Wait, hold on. Why do we have Adam's apples?
Are you like biologically or
no? Why are they called Adam's apples?
Oh, I think that is it. No, that is. I'm pretty sure that is why.
Adam's apple is a loan word from Latin.
What?
Yes. It is, yes, from the forbidden fruit was supposedly embedded in the throat of Adam. Yes,
So they're like implying that he didn't sin as much as Eve because it's still like
stuck
in his
throat. Still in his throat, not being digested? Maybe.
Wow.
I hadn't thought of that. In the Latin phrase pomum adami, literally Adam's apple, is a mistranslation of the Hebrew tapach Adam, meaning male bump. The confusion is that Adam literally means man, right, in Hebrew.
Right.
Right. So they were trying to say just a male bump, and then it got, when it was translated to Latin, suppose that that it was about the story here. With the
wow. See, folks, how many times have we been led astray due to mistranslation, right? Like, so the Hebrew was actually like very literal. It's like the bump in male throats.
Yes, exactly. The male bump or the male swelling. Yes, the swelling of a man. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it could be confused for other things as well. But yeah, okay, back to Paradise Lost. And folks, if you're looking at the timestamp on this particular episode, and you notice that it's a little bit long, like even for our episodes, that is because this book is the longest book in this poem. So of all the books in Paradise Lost, book 10 is the longest by several hundred lines, not words, lines.
Right.
Yeah.
It's 1,100 lines.
Yeah. So add that to our frequent diversions, and yeah. So you'll start listening to this the day it drops, and by the time you're done, you'll be behind because we'll have 2 more weeks worth of stuff. But yeah, folks, the last book was our climax. So the rest of the story here is falling action. Get it? Because they're fallen, right? See, Keenan, even our jokes are no longer funny after the fall.
Oh, were they ever?
We'll never know. It's a mystery. Just like Milton cannot conceive of an unfallen world with his fallen mind, so too are we unable to conceive of funny jokes on The Exorcist Minute. It's paradoxical.
That's right.
Yeah. But no, this is it, folks. The rest of the poem is all about the consequences of the fall. And remember, I had realized too late that I was actually liking the Adam and Eve books, just as they had their big tragedy, and now I'm sad. And I'm starting to think this Satan fella is not a nice guy. And so, yeah, I'm eager to get back to Adam and Eve and see what happens to them, but Milton has other plans. We got to go to heaven and hell before we can get back to them. And then when we do, well, let's read Milton's argument up at the top here first. Man's transgression known. The guardian angels forsake paradise and return up to heaven to approve their vigilance, and are approved, God declaring that the entrance of Satan could not be by them prevented. He sends his Son to judge the transgressors, who descends and gives sentence accordingly, then, in pity, clothes them both and reascends. Sin and death sitting till then at the gates of hell, by wondrous sympathy feeling the success of Satan in this new world, and the sin by man there committed, resolve to sit no longer confined in hell, but to follow Satan, their sire, up to the place of man. To make the way easier from hell to this world to and fro, they pave a broad highway or bridge over chaos, according to the track that Satan first made. Then, preparing for earth, they meet him, proud of his success, returning to hell. Their mutual gratulation. Satan arrives at Pandemonium in full assembly, relates with boasting his success against man. Instead of applause, is entertained with a general hiss by all his audience. Transformed with himself, also suddenly into serpents, according to his doom given in paradise, then deluded with a show of the forbidden tree springing up before them. They, greedily reaching to take of the fruit, chew dust and bitter ashes. The proceedings of sin and death, God foretells the final victory of his Son over them, and the renewing of all things, but for the present commands his angels to make several alterations in the heavens and the elements. Adam, more and more perceiving his fallen condition, heavily bewails, rejects the condolement of Eve. She persists, and at length appeases him. Then, to evade the curse likely to fall on their offspring, proposes to Adam violent ways, which he approves not, but conceiving better hope, puts her in mind of the late promise made them, that her seed should be revenged on the serpent, and exhorts her with him to seek peace of the offended deity by repentance and supplication. God,
That's
these
a
are
lot of
getting longer
stuff.
and longer. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
that's jam-packed.
Yeah. We're going to need an argument for the argument. Oy. And folks, remember, we had joked a couple episodes ago how Paradise Lost is the outlier of all our History of the Devil episodes, specifically the ones where we explore the devil in literature, because I said we don't have Milton as a self-insert character like, Solomon or Dante. He's not actually walking around in Eden or in hell or heaven in this story as a character, but then in our last book, we talked about how even if he's not a character the other characters can see, he's still playing the character of the storyteller at times. He's constantly breaking the fourth wall and letting us, the readers, know what he thinks about all of this and commenting on what just happened and preparing us for what is about to happen. I said he reminded me of Dickens in that way, or the author of a children's book, who are characters in and of themselves, talking to you as they tell the story. So Milton has been with us this whole time. We mostly feel his presence in the opening, right after the argument, when he talks to the muses or to us. And remember, in the last book, he was having trouble talking to us because that was the book where communication broke down or was altered forever. So his connection with the muses and our connection with him was deteriorating. It was dying. And now we open on this book, book 10, and he's not even here. It just goes right into the story. No more Milton at the top being like, okay, let me get you ready for what's about to go down, because it's already gone down. It's done. And I like this choice to have us feel, deserted by him. He led us into this, and then he disappears, much like Satan, in the snake, and also in Eve's dream. Or it could be that something else severed the tie between us. Right? We played with the meta idea that Satan is literally creeping around in the text, messing up Milton's writing and inserting words like wander and error in the Garden of Eden before the fall even happens. And you get this chill when you realize Satan won in the last book, and suddenly Milton is gone. And now, much like Adam and Eve, we feel abandoned and alone. How are we going to get through this? And also, if Milton's gone, who's driving this thing? But yeah, I guess we got to see it through. So we open with all the angels who were placed down in Eden, floating back up to heaven in this sad, almost funeral procession. And we talk about Milton's God and how he seems cold and unattached, but the angels have always been our friends. Like, you get the sense that they really cared for Adam and Eve, and now they're floating back up and they're so sad. They're not indignant or outraged at the disobedience. They're mourning the loss of these two people whom they had come to love. And it's made worse by the fact that they failed. They had been tasked with guarding and protecting Adam and Eve, and in the end, they couldn't. So they're coming back to tell God, who already knows, that they lost. It's over. And of course, they also feel like they betrayed their father who trusted them with this charge. But yeah, that's our first image. And it's such a weird juxtaposition, these angels floating upward.
That's really interesting. That hadn't occurred to me, Lester, because we've
Hmm.
seen so much of like Satan's inner thoughts about what he thinks of Adam and Eve.
Right.
But I haven't really thought about like, well, what does Raphael think about them? What does
Right.
Uriel think about them? And the
Mhm,
way you're
mhm.
describing it, which is super interesting, is like,
Mm.
when your friends have a child or something, I've been
Yeah.
around some parents who have lost a child very early on. And, of course it is about the parents primarily, but like you as
Mhm.
a community are like, oh, this is like our, we had ideas and thoughts about this too. And like we shared with our friends, like their plans for
Mm.
their child. Right.
Right.
So I wonder if that's like, it's all different because the angels are serving God, but maybe
Mhm,
they
mhm.
also had this like, wow, Adam and Eve are going to be the future of this enterprise of holy goodness.
Yeah, yeah. And like, I mean, just to kind of like add to that, if we had been like, I don't know, put in charge of taking care of
Mm-hmm.
our friends' children, right?
Right.
And something happened,
Yes.
Um, like I do think that Satan and the fallen angels are the only ones who are like, it's like, fuck these humans.
Yeah, they're jumping the social order.
Right. Yeah. I think the angels do care for them.
Mm-hmm.
There's the celebration and the joy at their creation, and you also see Raphael talking to Adam like he's a bigger brother, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like, and he's like, "Oh, I can't stay mad at you," or it's like, "Oh, I have to, humor this request to stay
Mm-hmm.
and talk to you more," right?
Right.
Like he's reading him a story or something like that,
Right.
right? Um, and and then yeah, these guys right here, it like couple that with the sadness of like they are sharing in Adam and Eve's sadness. They can't like feel it exactly, but
Mm-hmm.
they're like, oh, like this is, they also feel this loss.
Right.
And so yeah, so they arrive at the gates of heaven, and apparently the other angels hadn't yet heard the news.
Mm.
And so now they get the news, and all of heaven despairs for Adam and Eve, and it's just heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
But folks, I don't know if Milton did this on purpose, but the next thing that happens, I think, is a brilliant touch, because the angels who had been down on earth when the fall occurred head straight to God's throne to tell him the news and to say that it wasn't their fault. And right up until this part, you're thinking, oh man, the angels really love us. They feel so bad for us, right? And they're going to go to God and they're going to say, Lord, we failed. But instead, they show up and they're like, Lord, it wasn't our fault. And you think back on how our last book ended with Adam and Eve bickering and blaming each other and not admitting to their own faults. And now it's as if these angels who were down on earth with them when the fall happened have brought that virus up to heaven.
And God knows their hearts, right? I think
Right.
they're used to having that relationship where they don't have to
Yes.
explain themselves to God, and now all of a sudden, yeah, they're sort of these recriminations of like, don't blame us, whatever. They've sort of
Right.
lost some of their connection with God.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I'm choosing to read it. I don't know if Milton means for us to see it that way. Remember his God is always saying that it's not his fault, right? But I'm just going to read it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I like how we just left Adam and Eve and they were fighting and blaming each other and not admitting responsibility. And here you have the angels coming back from Earth and basically doing the same thing. I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
And unlike how he will be with Adam and Eve, God is not angry with these angels. He tells them that it could not have been prevented, which, again, making him infallible makes him a little problematic. But he does remind them. He's like, remember in book 3, we were all watching Satan as he was sneaking through space towards Eden, Mission Impossible style, and I told the sun that he was going to succeed, and all the angels were like, oh yeah, because they were all there, remember?
Right. And they read the book.
And they read the book, right? It becomes a Mel Brooks thing where they all have like scripts.
They have the scripts, yeah. To Blazing Saddles, right?
Right. Oh, but actually, wait. Maybe the Earth angels were already on Earth, so maybe they weren't there in book 3, like watching Satan get there and all that.
Okay, and they didn't read the scripts.
And they didn't read the scripts.
What's Dom DeLuise from Blazing Saddles going to say? You should have read the script.
That's why they're apologizing to God. It's like, how didn't you know that this was the next act?
Right. Like, and God doesn't want to be like, well, per my last email, you hate to be that kind of person, but this was all foretold in the prophecy, and we have a PowerPoint deck on this.
Yes. You even replied to the prophecy with your favorite cheat meal. Do you get those? Do you get, like, your boss tells you, it's like, to make sure that you've read this, please reply with, I don't know, something.
No,
like your favorite
that's awful.
It is so fucking sadistic. Just to make sure you read every single word of this goddamn email.
No,
please reply with your...
Jesus Christ. That's awful. No, I have a boss who's constantly saying things like, well, I sent that in the email, but I understand not everyone reads everything, so let's go over it again. Not a problem at all. It's lovely. Yes.
I want to live in a world created by your God.
Oh no, she's great.
Yeah.
What's your favorite cheat meal? And my boss doesn't have cheat meal. She's a big snacker. She leaves snacks all over the office for us.
Ooh, I like that. This is getting better and better.
Lester's going to start driving up to Vegas to record at my office. So, drive back down again.
Hang on a minute. Some of these snacks are apples. Wait a minute.
Too good to be true.
Yeah. It's like in the fridge is just like a little lunch bag. This is the lunch bag of knowledge of good and evil. You eat that and you get fired.
Yeah, exactly. I wish fridge thieves would get fired. They don't seem to.
No. Because we live in a fallen world, Keenan. But yeah, so God tells them not to worry, and he announces that he is going to now send the Son down to talk to Adam and Eve and to pay their debt when the time comes. And that's S-O-N, not S. Because I'm realizing right now that this is a completely auditory medium.
Right, but we can't call him Jesus yet because he's not Jesus yet.
No, we're not allowed to. Right. But yeah, and the Son speaks, and he adds that this is his will as well. He promised God he would do this. He's not being commanded to do this. He will do this alone. He needs no retinue, no army to come with him. And yes, he will repay the debt, but he will also introduce the concept of mercy and mix it in with God's justice. And this is interesting. Milton seems to be separating God and the Son in a way that the Son is the personification of God's love and mercy, which I think is a little different from scriptural understanding. And I'm not even talking about like the whole like 3-in-1 paradox that that Christian scholars still debate over. Like I'm talking about like from a faith perspective. I always assumed that both God and Jesus like could love and show mercy. Like maybe they are all like the one being, but they're also all individually complete. It's not like God has no love and mercy without Jesus. But it almost seems like this is what Milton is implying here, that the Son, as he calls him, is God's mercy. I don't know. Like, how does this read to you?
Oh, geez, I don't know. That sounds pretty complicated, but maybe, maybe it's like Old Testament God, right? Creation and wrath and retribution, and law giving, and then New Testament God, right? Mercy, acceptance, love, personal relationships, right? And sure, the Old Testament God does have some love and mercy and personal relationship, and the New Testament God does have some creation and laws and such. But yeah, maybe that's the split.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, we solved religious sex. Is that right?
Yeah,
sects.
Yeah,
sects.
No.
Okay, great.
We can't talk about sects or horror in a purely auditory medium because they sound like other things. Yeah. Okay. So the Son is accompanied by all the angels to the gates of heaven, right? But remember, he says he's going to do this alone. So from that point, he continues alone through space to Earth, to Eden. So he's going to talk to Adam and Eve in that retelling of that part in Genesis where God is walking in the garden and he discovers that they had sinned. So in Milton's version, it's not God walking in the garden and it's like Adam, where are you? It's the Son, right?
Right.
So also, what do we make of this, right? Like it's essentially Jesus and not God coming down and talking to Adam and Eve, right? He did this with the creation story as well. He had the sun go out into chaos to physically measure space and time and build the earth. And, I like the imagery with the, the compasses and God in his workshop, essentially. But again, it was the sun doing all of it, even though Milton continually switched and kept calling him God, or had God present as a voice telling him what to do next. But it seems like whenever Milton needs God to appear or do something outside of heaven, it's in the form of the Son, even in Genesis, where Jesus wasn't present.
Oh yeah, well that's very interesting. That sounds again more of this to me like we're trying to unite Old Testament, New Testament, right? Like again, as you said recently on some of our other minutes, right, or episodes, that like Milton isn't the first one to say like, hey, this snake is Satan.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
We've made that leap. But the original people who were writing it didn't have a concept of, the great Satan or Lucifer, et cetera. But yeah, people afterwards are like, well, that just makes the most sense. Right. So now we're again taking New Testament, again, sorry to say it this way, but characters, right? We're taking a New Testament character and saying, well, no, the God we were talking about in Genesis is also the New Testament God.
Interesting. Yeah, it does seem like he's trying to tie up as many loose ends as he can, and even stuff that like we wouldn't consider loose ends, but he sees as a loose end. He's like, oh no, I got to explain this too.
I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head, I think, Lester. We've been avoiding saying this, but Milton is George Lucas. Milton is George Lucas.
He's George Lucasing the Bible. That is what is going on.
Yeah, and like Kathy Kennedy now, who's taken on for George Lucas, right? Like in the TV shows, like, oh, Leia was there the whole time as a child, right? On Tatooine or whatever, and just like, hey, that's what you want, isn't it? You want Leia to always be there, and you want Anakin to always be there. And even after Anakin's dead, his ghost comes and he's around for these events you didn't know he was around for, and it's all the same thing.
That is what he's doing. He is the George Lucas of religion. or at least Christianity.
Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and he's going to encourage the other religions, like Lucas encouraged Spielberg to take out the walkie-talkies and ET because they had the technology to do that. Like you can go in and fix everything wrong with your religion. We have computers now.
He's gonna go to the founders of Islam and Judaism, and he's like, hey, I just figured out this really cool thing you can do.
That's right.
Just piece them all together like that, right?
Right. Francis Ford Coppola makes an Apocalypse Now Redux, and he's like, so Milton's going over to like the founders of Buddhism and being like, you could add in the old footage. People will buy it on DVD.
Right. He's talking to Confucius. It's like, have you considered like adding like a 17-legged monster that just it just kind of like blocks the whole screen and your main characters and but everyone's going to be looking at it because it's like so beautiful. And it's like it's the most advanced thing we have right now. But won't like in 3 years won't it look like crap? It's like no, this stuff is forever. But yeah, okay. So Milton says the sun arrived just as the sun, that's S-U-N, was setting, and I imagine that's Uriel getting out of there because he knows Adam and Eve are going to get a talking to, right? So and from here we cut to Adam and Eve, and they're walking in the garden, and it struck me that they are still walking together. Milton isn't trying to highlight this. I don't think, right? He's not like see, they're still together. I don't even think he was thinking of that. It's just, they need to be together because, of the next scene. But I like how that's one thing Satan doesn't see because he doesn't stick around, right? That they are still together. Remember, we ended the last book and they were fighting, but God or the sun finds them walking together. Probably nothing, but, something I noted. In any case, they hear the voice of God, or I guess the voice of the sun in this version, and they hide. And the sun knows exactly where they're hiding, and he knows exactly why, but he asks them why they're hiding. And Milton says there was no love in their faces for God or for each other. So maybe I was wrong, actually. But I don't think I was. I feel like Milton is either intentionally or unintentionally ignoring the fact that they didn't go off on their own. I don't know. But what the son does see in their faces is guilt, shame, despair, and also hatred. And Adam admits that he heard his voice and was afraid, and being naked, he hid himself. And the son is like, you have often heard my voice and were unafraid, so why the change? And also, who told you that you were naked? Did you eat from the tree that I told you not to eat from? And Adam's like, just to be clear, are we talking about the tree of life or the tree of no?
Right, because not even the son has the answer to that.
Right, yeah, right. See, that would be my first thing, right? If I was Adam, I'd be like, I would play dumb so hard. I'd be like, I thought you said not to eat from the tree that was in the very center, the highest tree. But no, he actually goes through this like inner struggle where he reflects how Eve stuck with him even after the fall, and he still loves her, and he should take the bullet for her, but God would see through his lie, and he doesn't want to lie to God. And it's this really sweet inner monologue, except it's not an inner monologue. He is saying all of this. He did the quiet part loud and the loud part quiet. Cut to the son, and he's like, okay, so Eve gave you the fruit, and Adam's like, how did you know? No, actually what happens, all of this is an outer monologue, like I said, right? He says all of this to the son, which I also take as a little sly. He's basically like, I want to do the right thing and take all the blame for this, but that would be lying to you, God. So instead, I'm going to tell you the truth. The woman you gave me, whom I assumed was perfect, gave me the fruit and I ate it. And I like how he's phrasing it. He went from blaming Eve to blaming God in the same breath. It's exactly like that one version I remember reading where Adam basically says, like, the woman you gave me caused all of this. And when I say I like this, I don't like it. But I like how in the story after the fall, their souls are busted, and like Adam is selfish. He's calculating. He's shirking responsibility. It's a continuation of the fight that he and Eve had at the end of the last book. Not only that, but all their talk is now disjointed and wandering. It does all these like twists and turns so that it can fit, whatever narrative we want to create. Adam's whole thing was naming stuff, right? He had a relationship with words. And again, like God creating things and bringing order to chaos, Adam brought order and organization through language. And in trying to save himself, he's twisting language in a way that it was never meant to be twisted. He has learned to lie and to imply and to insinuate. Right?
Must have been something he ate.
Yeah, right?
Yes, but I think you're right. It is like, hey, that woman that you gave me that you promised was equal to me or better than me. It turns out she was broken.
Right. Yeah. I want a refund. Yeah.
Right, exactly. We have the rib. I want my rib back.
Yeah, right. And it's been so, I've been feeling unbalanced since that, just like asymmetrical,
Right.
God's just like, oh, yeah. But yeah, it's not cutting the mustard with the son, right? And the son, and I feel like I gotta say, Milton's the son, basically calls him out and says, "Aren't you superior to her? Aren't you the man?" So there you go, folks. Like we can no longer give Milton the benefit of the doubt, right? His Jesus, and that's why I say Milton's the son,
right.
Is explicitly stating that Adam is Eve's superior,
right?
So
disappointing.
Yeah, right. So then he turns to Eve and he asks her to explain herself. And like Adam, she blames someone else. She blames the serpent. And the son immediately passes judgment on the serpent, even though he had said to God up in heaven that he knew the serpent was not to blame.
Right.
Like that was part of this whole thing. It's like, yes, I will go down there. I'll talk to Adam and Eve. And I also know, and just so all y'all angels know, that serpent was an innocent, unwilling participant. But and now he's passing judgment on the serpent. But the way that Milton writes it, he has this little aside, right? So this, we're getting like little like whispers of Milton now, right? Like he's maybe he's not all the way gone, right? And Milton just kind of whispers, it's like, well, now the son knew it wasn't the serpent's fault, and the serpent had already been punished enough, right? I think that's what he's saying. I think he's saying he wasn't going to curse the serpent because it had already been cursed by Satan, right? Just by Satan, like kind of like wearing him essentially.
Okay.
But then Milton's like, but Adam and Eve think it was the serpent. So the son's going to do like a fake curse on the serpent in front of them and then go punish Satan later or like transfer the serpent's curse to Satan later. And I'm like, but why? Why is the son lying now?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, and why doesn't he think Adam and Eve will understand that it was Satan?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like they've been told enough times about Satan. He could just say, it's like, yeah, it wasn't the serpent actually. Remember that devil we kept warning you about?
So wait. Okay, so we're supposed to think that Adam and Eve don't think it's the devil. They think that they've been warned about the devil, and then a snake did this to them, and they're like, well, that was just a snake, and Satan is just gone somewhere.
Right. And like it feels like Jesus is like, or the son, sorry, is saying, you're right, that was just a snake, and I'm gonna you bad old snake.
That's odd.
But okay, but like for the show, Keenan, like I read ahead. I'm already reading the next book.
Okay.
And they're fighting and they're arguing, and they know that it was Satan.
Right.
Adam and Eve. So they do know that it's Satan. So I'm confused by this whole thing. I'm confused as to why the son is punishing the snake at all. Yeah. Like he's not doing it for show because, and again, like I cheated for the next episode. I'm already reading the next book, and Adam and Eve are arguing. It's just like that's Satan, and Satan did this to us. Mm-hmm. And so they know that it was Satan, and the son knows that it was Satan, and God knows that it was Satan. Everybody knows that it was Satan.
Everybody but Uriel knows who did it.
That's true. That's true.
Right, because it's not uncommon, like for a king in these times to be like, well, I'm going to, this village over here didn't do anything, but fuck that village, and I'm going to destroy them for the greater good of appeasing these people or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not what's going on here,
right? Or for a king to like. Just to keep the peace,
right?
To execute a scapegoat,
right?
It's like we've been having, like our crops haven't been growing, right. Or we've had this terrible plague. I know who it is. It's this witch. It's not. But like we're gonna kill this lady, this innocent lady, right. And that way you guys will think I did my job,
right?
And you won't run me out on a rail,
right? Mm-hmm.
But no, like everybody knows that it was Satan, And why did we even bother having the son say, but the snake is innocent, if the same character is going to now punish the snake?
Yeah, I'm feeling more and more bad for the snake as we move through this book. Yes.
I'm just
confused. He's the actual like tragic hero of all this, right. Is the snake. Right.
The actual, like if we go far back enough, right, to Milton's original drafts, right? The original title is Paradise Lost. Right? It's just this poor snake. Right?
Poor snake.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, maybe because, I'm not a Milton scholar. I'm a fan of this poem, but like I don't pretend to be an expert on it. So I don't like, maybe I'm just not understanding something, but yeah. Right here, the son is punishing the snake like immediately after he said, I know the snake is innocent.
Right.
And it seems like he's doing it uselessly because later on, Adam and Eve will let us know that they know that it was Satan all along.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. What are you going to do?
Feel bad for snakes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do.
Right.
I'm going to go out and kiss the first snake I see on the lips.
There you go. Right. And listeners, no, don't, please don't do that. We don't want any lawsuits. Oh my God. And yes, I know why Milton is doing it, right? He's trying to justify that one passage in the Bible where God curses the serpent, right? He feels like he has to check that box, right? And I personally think what Milton decides to stay true to versus what he decides he can mess with is an interesting glimpse into both Milton's mind and the collective mind of the 17th century, right?
Right.
we can see where the priorities were, right? It's okay to make up stuff about angel poop because it serves the idea that all of creation is one big like self-governing body
Right.
that gets sick when you introduce the virus of sin. So, he went on a wild detour to explain, the problem of evil that way. But then he's also like, okay, I gotta hit these specific points and I can't mess with them too much because,
Right.
they're important or people will be mad at me or something.
And not just mad at you, like putting you on the stake. Yeah.
Oh yeah, right.
Right.
I will be labeled a heretic.
Yeah, like if you're on the gallows or something, or on the fire pile or whatever, and you're like, are you guys mad at me? I can accept the execution, but like, don't hate me.
Yeah. Can we end on friendly terms? I don't want to burn any bridges, And he does even though his hands are tied, he tries to do the finger guns, right? When he says burn bridges, and they're just not having it, But no, personally, I think this is when the poem fails, like when he actually tries to justify God or scripture, right? It's great when he just tells the story, when he uses scripture as a baseline and expands upon it by fleshing out the character of Satan, or giving us a poetic play-by-play of the creation story, or a play-by-play of the battle in heaven, right? Or yes, even Raphael explaining the inner workings of creation, right? Like all of that stuff is interesting, right? It's an expansion of scripture. It's a new way to look at what little detail we have in the actual scripture. And the farther away he is from the words and the events of the Bible, the freer his writing seems, right? The best parts are the parts that have like little or no connection to what is written in the Bible. The farther away he wanders from the sacred text, the more creative he gets. But then there are parts of the sacred text he feels he has to have in his version. And I'm not saying he's wrong. There's some stuff you obviously can't leave out. And it's interesting to see like what he judges is untouchable.
Right.
And also interesting to see how he gets around it and, justifies it with, his own retelling. Yeah. But yeah, so God says, or the Son says, because thou hast done this, thou art accursed above all cattle. Each beast of the field upon thy belly groveling thou shalt go, and dust shall eat all the days of thy life. Between thee and the woman I will put enmity, and between thine and her seed. Her seed shall bruise thy head, thou bruise his heel. Yeah, and this is, of course, from the Bible. It's not Milton's invention, and it has confused people all through the years. Some suggest it's literal, like referring to the natural enmity between, snakes and man, right? They bite our heels and we kill them by stomping on their heads. Or you kill them by stomping on their heads. I don't do that.
No, and I kiss them on their little lips.
Yeah, there we go. Right?
And I scratch behind their little ear holes.
There you go. Right? Yeah. Yeah, you didn't know that snakes had little ear holes, did you? Now it's a little harder to bruise their heads with your heel, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, so and other people are like, no, it's obviously an allegory for Christ crushing Satan. I think that one's a little shakier because I don't know if the writers of Genesis were thinking of Christ or Satan.
No, they weren't thinking of Christ or Satan. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, it's like early on, this really was just a talking snake, and Satan had nothing to do with it.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I think this is God saying snakes and humans will be natural enemies, right? And again, just a nice little way of explaining, why we have trouble with snakes,
Well, if it's unnatural for me to see a snake in the wild and get on my knees and kiss it and let it put its little tongue in my ear as a hello, then I don't want to be natural.
Yeah. You hear that, folks? Better to reign in kissy snake land than serve in this loveless, godless,
I guess
snakeless.
Yes, stompy snake land.
Yeah.
But the way you're describing it sounds like the Bible as creation myth, which I mean I know it is, but like that's not how you don't read it that way when it is your understanding of the world, I suppose. Like you don't call it a creation myth,
Well, I mean, and we're kind of going off here, but I mean, I remember Father Jerry talking to us about that story in Genesis,
Mhm.
about Noah and the
Right.
flood, and him like saying to all the congregation, he's like, like the farther back you go, the more you have to like accept that some of this is just our mythology,
Mhm.
right? Like the Jewish people were probably telling this story like on the way to Jerusalem to their
Mhm.
kids, right? To
Right.
explain, it's like mommy, why, it's like why do we fear snakes so much,
Right.
right?
When
Or
they're
like,
so damn kissable. Why?
yeah. And they were just like you, Keenan. They wanted to like they
Right.
see a poisonous snake, in the path, right?
Mhm.
And mom has to scoop the little kid up and be like, well, let me tell you about a certain garden and a certain asshole snake,
Right.
right? But yeah, I mean, like, and that's just some like I know there are sects of the Abrahamic religions which still like take this part, Genesis very, very literally.
Right.
And then there are also some who are like, well, it's so far back that like they look at it as they concentrate more on the message rather than
Mhm.
like oh, this actually happened.
Right.
Right. But yeah. And that also made me wonder like if perhaps this like evolutionarily this isn't a holdover from polytheistic religions
Mhm.
like in that area, like
Mhm.
ancient Israel, Egypt, Mesopotamia, right? Like the Egyptians had a love-hate relationship with snakes in
Mhm.
their daily life, and they had like a good and bad supernatural beings in the form of snakes.
Right.
And other things, and the geography is going to inform the religion and the scripture. And if you live in a place where your people are constantly being troubled by scorpions, maybe one of the big bads in your religion is going to be a scorpion.
Mhm.
Or like if an animal is bothersome, you might tell stories about it, like Anansi the spider from
Mhm.
African
Right.
stories, right? Or foxes and raccoons from Japanese mythology,
Mhm.
right? And what's fascinating, like how many cultures around the world will assign the same human characteristics to the same animal, right? You get the wise owl, the crafty fox, the sly snake, right? The timid mouse.
Mhm.
And that stuff is ancient, but we can still see it in our entertainment. Anytime you have like anthropomorphized animals in a cartoon, for example, right? It's usually shorthand for this character is wise, right? You make him an owl or a turtle, right?
Mhm.
Or this character is greedy, you make him a pig.
Mhm.
Or this character is the father of all evil, and you make him a snake.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Rabbits have ADHD and
uh-huh. And they're
yeah.
really, you always got a lot of kids.
Right.
Right. But look at all the cartoons. How many owls and turtles are wearing glasses and having jobs like
Mhm.
teacher or librarian
Yeah.
or doctor, right? And in these same cartoons,
Mhm.
how many good guy snakes do you see?
I don't know if I've seen any good guy snakes. Yeah.
Right? Or rats or wolves or vultures, right?
Right.
Yeah. I can think of like maybe the Secret of Nim had good rats, right?
Yeah, kinda. They had to
Eh.
be. They had to fall. They had to have their own fall and their
Mm-hmm.
original sin. They had to be given forbidden knowledge, and
Right. Yeah. Talk about, yeah.
and that's how they
Thematic.
became good.
Right. But yeah, like so like then even today, folks, right? The natural enemies of man, right? Like
Mhm.
these pests or these predators, right? Are usually the bad guys.
Right.
And then like apes and monkeys are either really smart because they're so close to us,
Mhm.
or they're extremely silly, right?
Mhm.
And bears are big and lazy, lambs are meek, right?
Mhm.
And the beauty of Zootopia is that they use these established archetypes to talk about like racism and generalization of groups, and sometimes they would like subvert those things beautifully, right?
Mhm.
You'd have like an evil animal playing a good one, or vice versa. Right?
Yeah, and a potentially like a murderous otter, which we don't
Uh-huh.
think of. Yeah, like oh god, that otter's gonna kill you.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they got Gazelle played by Shakira, and she does her
Mm-hmm.
little hips don't lie dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always like Gazelle.
Mm-hmm.
Why not Adele?
Maybe they couldn't get her. I don't know. They got Shakira. They
Then
already had a
cha-
contact with Shakira.
Then change it to an animal that sounds like Shakira.
Like
I'm sure that was the joke, is Adele Gazelle, right?
you think so?
It's gotta be. Doesn't Bagheera mean panther?
Oh, Bagheera does mean panther. Yeah, right.
Ah, there you go. I'm saying, yeah, like rename it. You couldn't get Adele. Scrap the whole gazelle thing. Make it a panther. and it's Bagheera, right?
Bagheera.
Yeah, it's perfect. Dear Pixar. Yeah. And so all that to say, I wonder if this like talking snake in the very first part of the Bible is maybe one of the earlier versions of that, right?
Yeah.
They keep saying how clever and cunning the snake is, right? That's us giving it human traits.
Right, because it tricks us by just showing up places that we didn't notice. And we're like, oh, what a trickster.
Exactly, right? And yes, of course, I do think the Genesis story had a lot to do in, shaping our anthropomorphized snake characters all the way up to today, right? They're always the bad guys. Yeah, I've never seen a good snake in a cartoon. Right. And they're always smart bad guys, right? They're not like the muscle bound thugs or bumbling henchmen. Right?
Right.
Those are the like you're gonna have like I don't know warthogs or gorillas
rhinos,
or something.
gorillas, yeah.
Exactly, right? Yeah, Bebop and Rocksteady. It's like there you go, right?
Sorry, all of these animals that we're slandering.
Yeah, right.
Like we see now that these are stereotypes and they're harmful.
Yes, we need to put like a little thing at the beginning of this episode. Right? No. But yeah, so Milton in the next stanza makes a call forward to Jesus, son of woman, son of Mary, defeating Satan. So he is referencing that second interpretation, right? That God's curse in Genesis is foreshadowing Jesus crushing Satan underfoot. And then when he's done with that, he curses Eve and all women with the pain of childbirth, which she hasn't had kids yet. So we're to assume that they would have been like easy to give birth to before the fall. And then, here he very clearly pronounces that a wife will submit to her husband. So if there was any question about it before, now after the fall, that's what's happening, I guess. And of course, this isn't Milton. This is the original scripture, which fascinates me because it seems like the writers are trying to say, and this is why women should be subservient to men. This part of the Bible right here, right?
Right.
But that implies that the writers and the followers of this religion, right, of which I am included, understand that before this, they were equal. And once things are fixed in heaven, or when we get a new paradise on earth, they will be equal again, because that is the natural state, is equality. Like, am I crazy? Like by making it a curse, you imply that it is wrong. We shouldn't have pain in childbirth, right? Everyone would agree with that, right? We shouldn't have to toil in the fields, and women shouldn't be lower than men. Like they know this, they understand this. Otherwise, why even bring it up? If you really want to drive home that this is the right and natural order of things, don't mention it as a punishment. Have Eve just be subservient to Adam and give her a different punishment, right? Like I feel like Christians, or not just Christians, all the Abrahamic religions use this, part of the story to quote unquote prove that women are inferior to men. And we all just kind of conveniently forgot that it's a curse, right? It's not a proclamation. It's not a declaration, right? Which to me implies that if you want to go back to somewhere close to paradise or heaven on earth, you got to get back to man and women's original natural relationship, which is equal. Like in the same way we look around at all the evil in the world and we're like, man, all this came from eating that apple. Like, I wish we didn't have famine or drought or war. We should also be including sexual inequality. But like you talk to some of these religious folks and you're like, isn't it bad that we have death and disease and hunger and poverty? And they'll nod their heads and they'll be like, yeah, it's a shame. And then you say, oh, and also sexual inequality. And these same people will be like, whoa, hang on. That's just the natural order of things. No, it's not. It's literally one of the curses we get, right? In the same story. Like, am I stupid? Like, if you really believe all of these other things are bad, you got to also believe that that is bad as well. Or you got to accept all of those other things as fair and natural. So which is it? Like, you got to pick a lane.
That's really interesting. I haven't thought of that. But yeah, all of these things. So are we encouraged in the scriptures to try to achieve the pre-curse level, to try to get to Eden? Or is it like this is the natural state of things and the only way is forward through the Son?
See, that's the sticking point, right? Like if you decide to interpret it as like, okay, from now on, your you're down here
Mm-hmm.
and you should strive to get back up to where you were,
Mm-hmm.
right? Meaning, get rid of famine, get
Right.
rid of disease, get rid of war, and get rid of sexual inequality,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or is the scripture just saying, and it can't be helped now. These are all the bad things that live with you now.
Right. That is that sort of what's the word, fatalistic sort of idea that is, again, not in everyone's interpretation, but you do feel that with some people's interpretation, right? Like emphasizing the apocalyptic nature of these religions, that like, okay, nothing here matters, and yeah, that's not as attractive to me, obviously.
All right. But then like what I'm trying to say is, even if it is that, even if our religious teachers are being like, yep, that's just the way it is. Like, we're never going to get rid of sexual inequality, the same as we're never going to get rid of war and death.
Yeah, well, what's the point of being here at all? For like, we're never going to get rid of war, we're never going to get rid of famine. Like, so don't try to get rid of famine. That doesn't seem like
Well, no, but then they'll do this thing. They'll be like, oh, but just wait until the coming of the second paradise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I raise my hand and I'm like, okay, so then we'll have an end to all of those things.
Right.
Are you going to be happy with that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are all these like sexist assholes going to be like, yay, no more sexual inequality? No, they're not.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna be up in heaven, and God's gonna be like, hey, guess what? All of those bad things are still down on earth, but you're up in heaven now. Men and women are completely equal, as they should have been. And yeah, what's Mr. So-and-so gonna think about that?
Well, my big question is about where clothes fit in all this, because I hate fashion. I'm terrible at it, and I just feel uncomfortable in clothes all the time. So when do we get to be naked? That's my point. When do I not have to wear socks?
But see, Keenan, the way I'm interpreting it, I truly believe that we should strive to create. I don't think heaven on earth is coming unless we make it, right? I don't think we're going to get another Eden unless we do it ourselves. It's on us, right? So yeah, like folks, listeners out there, it is up to me and to you to eradicate famine and war and pants.
Oh God, I hate pants. Yeah, if I could walk around socially acceptable like a Porky Pig or a Donald Duck with just shirt, underwear, and sandals, like
would you prefer,
Winnie the Pooh, I'd be very happy.
So you would like to have like a shirt up top?
Yeah. That feels good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just might be all the way. I just like full Adam and Eve.
All right. I'm good at that.
Maybe shoes. Right? Yeah. Okay. But yeah. So we know the rest, right? He pronounces judgment on Adam. He curses the ground so that it yields up thorns and thistles. And, to get anything out of the earth, he'll have to, labor and toil until he dies and goes back to the dust, right? But then Milton says that the Son/God took pity on them, and he took away the sentence of instant death, which is another inconsistency in the actual Bible. It doesn't explain why Adam and Eve don't immediately die. I think we all just assume now that God meant you now have a limited lifespan. But it's confusing enough to where scholars have argued over whether it means like spiritual death or future death or whatever. But here Milton's like, oh yeah, it was going to be instant death, but God felt bad for him, so he. So he's specifically going after all of these loose ends. Again, he's George Lucas. Adam and Eve, they were going to die, but...
But then we couldn't have trilogies.
Yeah. What about this new saga? It's called the New Testament. It's going to be really big. But yeah, okay, so then God/the Son made them clothes to wear, and I like the addition by Milton to say that he also clothed their inner nakedness, right? Their hearts or their souls, essentially. Like whatever got busted inside them, he also clothed that. And I like that he didn't heal it; he just clothed it.
Okay.
Like we still have to do the work to fix whatever like shame we're carrying around inside, but he made it less debilitating, I guess. Right. But yeah, so then the Son returns to heaven. So if I'm understanding this, Adam and Eve are still in Eden, right? They haven't been kicked out yet. I think it's implied that they're gonna be, but this is where Milton decides to end this scene.
Okay.
And he literally opens the next stanza with "meanwhile," and we get a hard cut to sin and death at the gates of hell, and I say hard cut. I know it's not a movie, but this switch is so jarring and also somehow comedic. Like, it's such a weird juxtaposition. We go from this tragic scene with Adam and Eve to sin and death still sitting on either side of the gates of hell, right? And I don't know, like maybe it's like modern cinema language making this funny for me. But to me, and tell me if you agree, Keenan, to me, this transition makes it feel like they haven't moved at all since we last saw them in book 2.
Right, absolutely.
Right? So Satan leaves through the gates, right? He meets Chaos, he meets Uriel, and then we meet Adam and Eve, and then Raph comes, and they talk, and we hear the story of the war in heaven. More talking. Raph leaves. Satan comes back to Eden after traveling around the world.
La 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 la
la, right? Adam and Eve have the world's first argument. Eve goes off alone. Satan tricks her into eating the fruit. Adam eats the fruit too because he wants to be with Eve. God discovers them, pronounces judgment, and leaves. The music swells as we close up on Adam and Eve holding each other in this world which has now turned cruel. And then cut to these two guys still sitting at the gate.
Yeah.
One turns to the other and it's like, it's like a post-credits scene where you realize one of the secondary characters is still locked inside the bank vault.
It's like that scene after I Just Can't Wait to Be King, and everyone goes away, and then we just hear Zazu under that rhino going, Simba.
Yeah.
No. But if that was the end of the Lion King somehow.
Yes. So everything happened, and then
yeah, this is a Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean move, I think. Rowan Atkinson in the bank vault, or
right.
Yeah, I don't think that's what happens in Wonka where he is, but yeah, that could have been. We just let's see where Rowan Atkinson ended up.
Yeah. But I also think it's comedic because, like, as we've gone through these books, it feels like we have moved from the purely fantastical, right? Because books 1 and 2 are entirely Milton's creation, right? There's nothing in any of the Abrahamic texts about Satan holding a grand council in hell or sin and death being his kids, right? That's 100% Milton. And as the books go, we move from that to extra biblical stuff like the war in heaven, which is also not in the Bible, but it's been around. It's well known, right? And then lastly, with the creation story and with Adam and Eve, we are now firmly in the realm of, like, this is a creative retelling of Scripture.
Oh, that's
right?
interesting, yeah.
Yeah, like whether it's historical or not depends on what you believe.
Right.
But we can all agree that it's steeped in it's steeped more in realism. This is not pure unfiltered Milton. So we've been getting more real as we go through the books. And then we hard cut back to sin and death, and we're like, right, they're also part of this story. Like, they exist in the same story as Adam and Eve, whom we've been spending so much time with. And I'm not complaining, right? Like, I like these characters. I liked the first 2 books. I'd still call them, like, my favorites. And I wouldn't have it any other way. But I can't deny I was a little surprised, that we're revisiting them. Right? Like, what did you think?
What is like if we continue on with Star Wars until the present day, but then C-3PO and R2-D2 are like on the Titanic or something, or in the trenches in World War I.
It's like, wait a minute. And it's like after we've gotten because like we love R2-D2 and C-3PO,
right? But to see them at the end of All Quiet on the Western Front,
yeah, right. Oh, poor Paul. That's right, R2. War is hell. We've seen the enemy, and it is us. Yeah.
Well, I like Sin and Death. I'm glad to see them around. They're weird.
No.
They're weird little freaks.
Yeah, no. No, it's like how wild is that we're like, oh, okay, good. Like some lighter fare with Sin and Death. But yeah, and also, like, I've heard this part criticized, maybe not for the characters of Sin and Death, but certainly for the thing they do in this scene. Professor John Rogers of Yale Courses, right, says this is one of the worst parts of the whole poem, right?
Oh.
I wouldn't go that far, but it does feel like they come from a different story and they're following different rules. Like, oh, we're allegorical characters, so everything we do is also allegorical, right?
Right.
Like, them being in the same story as Adam and Eve is like, I don't know, like, just is a little weird, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, so let's get into it, right? We talked enough about their reappearance. Let's see what they do. So, like I said, we cut to Sin and Death, and they've just been sitting here since we left them. And finally, Sin turns to Death, and she's like, "Hey, why are we still sitting here?" Right? And she reasons that if Satan had failed, he would have, come back sooner as punishment, because there's no worse place than this. And what's more, I like this. She says that she has felt something big has just happened, literally like a disturbance in the force. Right? What does he say? Like millions of voices crying out.
Millions of voices crying out. Yes, at the Battle of Verdun in World War I.
Right, yeah.
The disturbance in the force.
Yeah. Right. But for her, that would be good, right?
Oh yeah, bring them all down.
Yeah. And she says she feels that she has just been given dominion over something, which I also like. She feels her power growing, and she feels this pull. Something is calling to her from Earth. And so she suggests that they go there. And she says death has to come with her because no power can separate death from sin. And she suggests that on the way there, they should construct a path from hell to Earth so the demons can come and go as they please. So yes, folks, we had a stairway to heaven, and now we got a highway to hell.
So is that what Rogers is arguing about? Is that they build this bridge staircase thing?
Yeah, he's saying it's ridiculous.
Oh, well, I don't know. That makes sense to me. That they would need that all of a sudden.
Yeah, I don't think the upper crust of academia consider the stuff in here, like for example, like building the highway or fighting with cannons or throwing mountains and stuff like that. I think those are the things that continually get panned about Milton's stuff.
I guess it makes sense to me because I see them. I guess the problem is when we think of them within a Christian context, right? And then yes, in the Christian context, you don't need a staircase. People don't need to travel down there, or whatever. But seeing them, the way we're describing hell, as we've been talking about, like that's so sort of Christian, but really Greek, right?
Yes,
it's really
exactly.
like that Greek idea. So yeah. So there hasn't been a bridge from Earth to hell because we haven't needed one, but we've seen, it takes Satan quite some time to get from hell to Earth and vice versa. So yeah. Now that people can die and people can sin and go to hell, we need some kind of infrastructure.
Right. And we need the demons to have like an easy a way to access Earth so they can go and they can, tempt all the delicious humans.
Yeah, I'm all for infrastructure.
Yeah, you know what?
This should be bipartisan. Demons and angels should be on the same page about building infrastructure.
Yeah, right. But so highway to hell. So this is what Sin is proposing, highway to hell, right? And Death answers, and he says that he can now smell all the souls on Earth. I guess he means like future souls, because he's referencing like battle where lots of people die. And it's like a feast to him. So they fly out of the gates of hell and into chaos, and Death immediately starts building and shaping this road out of the swirling materials. And Rogers says this is like an unholy mockery of the creation story, right? With the sun measuring out the dimensions of the universe and creating the earth. And something that I caught, while God or the sun was using tools to construct the universe, right? Like the golden compasses and such, Death is not using tools, he's using weapons. Milton describes him as using a petrific mace, right, that turns the insubstantial chaos into stone. He says it's a mace, but he also says he smote the darkness as with a trident, and later as with a scourge or whip. So he's got all this weapon imagery going on. He's literally beating chaos into submission, into this solid, fixed road. And okay, so they're also like Sin and Death are also able to follow Satan's tracks, which I don't know if that's like a literal thing, like he left like footprints or anything, or if they can just like sense the direction that he's traveled through, like through chaos. But Milton's saying that like Satan paved the way figuratively, and now they're paving it literally.
But my question about that is that just visible now, or like, they can follow the set now that the fall has happened and it wasn't before, or whether they always could and just were choosing to sit by that gate?
Well, I think, I don't know, that actually is never answered, but I mean, they never had an inclination to leave the gates.
Right. Okay, so at least they have that inclination now.
Right. But yeah, I mean, like for all we know, there could have been little footprints, a little baby, footprints.
Yeah, the pitter patter of little Satan feet.
Yeah, right. Like ever since book 2, but they just never looked outside the door. So yeah. But yeah, so now they're following. That's the direction of this new highway. Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of which, as they're building this bridge, they meet Satan coming the other way. and yeah, Milton says he is disguised as a, quote, angel bright. But his children immediately recognize him. But that got me thinking, like, why is he disguised now? Like, he did the deed, right? Like, he's halfway home. Like, who is this for?
He should be, he should, if anything, he should be disguised as a snake, but
Mm-hmm.
but he's not. Yeah, so
No.
somewhere between that, go ahead.
Yeah, like, no, you're absolutely right. Like, this took effort. He
Yeah, exactly.
he changed from snake back to Satan and now to this new disguise.
Right, he did a quick change somewhere.
But, like, for who?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But then, Keenan, I was like, oh, for himself, obviously. Right? Like he is absolutely the type who would dress up for no reason, right? Just flying through space as a bright angel, right? I thought, is he like taking on the shape of the angel he once was? But Milton doesn't say that, right? And you think he would if that's what it was.
That would be called out, right? Like as his former glory or in his former armor. Yeah.
Right. So, but no, it's just a random angel,
right?
Not a cherub either. But I like that better, so I'm gonna say he's the cherub again.
Okay.
I think that's his favorite form. That's our canon, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, but is he like an angel bright or as an angel bright? Right. It says in likeness of an angel bright. Yes.
Yeah. Right. So there we go. Yeah. But actually, Milton goes back a little bit in events and tells us why Satan changed his shape. He says after seducing Eve, he slithered away, changed into the angel, and watched as Adam also ate the fruit. So we were right, Keenan. He did stay and gloat, right? He just did it privately. And then when the sun showed up, he skedaddled.
Right.
But he still didn't leave Earth. He came back that night to do some more eavesdropping. And he overhears Adam and Eve talking, and he learns about his own punishment. But he's happy to hear that this punishment will come later, that God will transfer it from the snake to him later. So back to the present, right? He meets his kids on the way back to hell, and he sees this amazing bridge that they have built. And, we know he's Lucifer. He's already proud, but now he's a proud dad. Right? And Sin congratulates him because, their hearts are so closely tied that she already knows that he has won on Earth. And so she says they should be thanking him for the bridge because it was his victory that allowed them to build it. See, she says Satan is now the monarch of the earth, and by God's own laws, he has to let Satan have it.
This feels like the way Satan would tell the story.
Yeah.
We should thank you, Father.
Yes, right.
For allowing us to build the bridge.
And you know what? I can't deny that. I mean, she's right. She's right. It was all me. Yeah. But yeah, and Satan tells them how proud he is of them. He says they really are their father's kids and wife and grandkid. I almost forgot about that. Yeah. And what's more, he now takes pride in the name Satan as the enemy of God. So he is full on Satan now. He doesn't even pretend to be Lucifer anymore, right? This is very much like we keep bringing her up in our Exorcist episodes, right? And now she's found her way in here, but it is the evil queen becoming the hag, right? In pursuit of their revenge, they both completely and permanently alter themselves, right? And separate themselves from the person who desired the revenge, right? The queen can't stand Snow White, and Lucifer believes himself to be brighter and better than God and man. And in the process of trying to prove that, he devolves into beasts and things that crawl and creep and slither, and eventually he is the most unclean spirit there is, right? They are completely different people from the ones who desired the revenge in the first place, right? But Satan owns the earth now, right? And he gives his children dominion over it. He sends them on their way with his blessing. And as they head towards the earth, they infect all of space as they pass, tarnishing its beauty. So I guess the space that we know now is the tarnished version. We've never actually seen the original beautiful version. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because he does paint the cosmos so beautifully before.
Right?
Huh. That's interesting.
And it's going to get changed up even more. But like even before that, it gets messed up by sin and death, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Satan continues down his new highway to hell, passes through the gates, which are now unguarded, and he finds hell completely empty. I really like this. It's like almost spooky. It's like just like this vast like underground cavern. It's completely empty. All the fallen angels have retired inside the walls of Pandemonium, and the leaders are still sitting in council, right? So Moloch, Belial, Mammon, and those guys.
So what the hell does that mean? They're still sitting at council the whole time. The whole time.
I think Satan made them do that. I think he's like
called ahead.
Yeah. Well, no. Look, he's like, I'm gonna go. Orchestrate the downfall of all mankind. You guys wait right here.
Literally right here.
Like literally, I don't want to hear you guys have been, frolicking in the lava pits. No infrastructure projects. No. Yeah.
Don't build anything. Don't farm or build or dig a hole. Just
no
in case
cultivation.
We need a hole later. Nothing.
No social structure. No.
Don't read a book.
Yeah.
Nothing. Don't bounce a ball.
Yeah.
Just sit here.
Oh, you can bounce a ball as long as it's in council, right?
All right.
So they just been we're talking about sin and death, like just sitting at the gate standing guard for like for like 8 books, right? And apparently like the council members have just been kind of twiddling their thumbs. Right?
All right, they're still in session, I guess.
Yeah, you just cut, and it's like, I spy with my little eye.
Someone read.
And Howdy's like, is it me? It's like, no, it's not you. It has never been you. Because that's his only guess.
Right.
And actually, it took like 5 books for someone else's turn to come up, because like Howdy would just like, I spy with my little eye, right? But he wouldn't say red. He would say something crimson. And he's like, no, that's brick red. That's obviously ruby.
Right. That's burnt sienna.
Nah. And someone got it, and then the turn passed to like Belial or something like that.
So they're like on turn 2 of this game.
Yes.
When Satan comes back.
It was just getting fun again. Yeah. But he's not even at the palace yet, right?
Right.
So the landscape of hell is utterly barren. Because remember, right, they're all in the city, right? And so he enters the city, right? He enters Pandemonium, right? And he's walking amongst the citizens, right? The lowlier fallen angels, I guess, right? And he's disguised as the lowliest possible rank of angel. He really does like doing that. And I think this form is different even from how he met his kids on the bridge, right? Remember, he was disguised as an angel bright, right? And here Milton says a plebeian angel, militant of lowest order, right? I'm still going to imagine the widow baby cherub.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Right. But anyway, okay. So then he gets to the palace, right? This is where the council members are. And he makes himself invisible now. And he enters and he walks past them to his throne, and he sits down, and then he just like sits and listens to them talk for a bit. And then like when he decides the time is right, he appears in a burst of light, right? Almost resembling his former angelic shape, Milton says, but not quite. Milton says because now it's just another disguise, right? But all the demons, like, they turn and they gasp and then they cheer, and it really is pandemonium in the place, right? But Satan silences them with a raise of his hand. Again, I'm loving all the unnecessary theatrics here. Right? And he begins his speech, and he says, "Thrones, dominations, princedoms, virtues, powers, for in possession such not only of right I call ye, and I declare ye now returned." So he says now that he has returned victorious, their original titles are once again theirs. And he goes on to say that he has returned to lead them all out of hell and into their new kingdom, which he has won for them. And he does that thing where he, implies that his adventure is too long and the hardships too numerous to recount.
Right, and too sexy.
And so way too sexy. This is like a PG-13 council room right here, right? But like he's saying this as he is recounting them. And he relays the whole story, like, flying through chaos, finding Eden, seducing Adam and Eve. And he's like, oh, and you're not going to believe this. I did it with an apple.
And Howdy's like an iMac? Or the devils just use Samsungs, do you think they...
Yeah. This is the, like when they start throwing things at Howdy. But no, like he's particularly proud of that. Like that he essentially bought them from God with a piece of fruit, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't his fruit, it was God's fruit.
Well, yeah, but I think the delight he's getting in that is that it's like such a little thing.
Yeah, but again, so sorry to argue against Satan, the Lord of Darkness here,
Sure,
right?
Sure.
But it's not like he was clever necessarily. It was like, hey, Superman, I have this kryptonite here. Don't go over here. And then Lex Luthor was like, oh, you know what I should do is get him to get hit with this kryptonite. It's not like some he didn't invent kryptonite. He didn't invent the apple.
Yeah.
It was the one thing that could take down man to begin with.
No. I am in complete agreement with you. I think he is patting himself on the back a little too hard. Machiavelli, he is not. Right, but he thinks he is.
Right.
And so he continues. He's like, yeah, God punished me. Technically he punished the snake, but I know he's actually punishing me. He said something about like how I'm gonna like bruise man's heel and he's gonna bruise my head, which I think is gonna happen later. But that's a pretty fair price for the whole world, right, guys? Guys,
what's a snake?
That would be Howdy. That would be
right. Exactly.
Yeah. Because actually no. You know what? That fits with what happens next.
Okay.
So yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So like what we're trying to say, listeners, is so he finishes this big speech and he's expecting, this round of applause and this cheering, right? And instead he's met with hissing. And at first he thinks it's like their disapproval, like it's like a boo hiss. And before he realizes what's actually happened, he also begins to change. But I like the idea, now that you have introduced it, Keenan, that all of the demons except for Captain Howdy have turned into snakes while Satan is doing his big speech.
Right.
And then you just hear, "What's a snake?" And you Satan looks down because he was looking up at the sky, while he was monologuing. He wasn't looking at them. Right. And Howdy's just sitting amidst this pile of snakes. And then Howdy looks around and he's like, "Oh, never mind." Right. But yeah, so he hears this hiss and he thinks it's them booing him or hissing. And he looks down and like before he realizes what has actually happened, he also begins to change. His face becomes long and thin. His arms fuse into his torso and his legs wrap around each other and he trips over them and he falls to the ground, completely transformed into a serpent. And he tries to speak, but all that comes out is a hiss. And he looks around and now he sees that all of them have also become serpents, not just snakes. Milton names all of these different types of creatures, both real and mythological, right? And I guess he's umbrellaing them all under serpent, right? So like there's hydras and dragons and gorgons, but also real snakes like pythons and asps. and also scorpions, which surprised me, but it made me think of the Exorcist episode we just did, where Marin says, who gave your holy apostles the power to tramp underfoot serpents and scorpions.
Mhm.
And I was like, wait, were scorpions associated with snakes and serpents back then? And I did some digging, and I found that the word serpent was an umbrella term for anything with an elongated body that crept low to the ground. And I was like, oh, what a fortuitous discovery. Because, I was happy enough with the line in the movie as it was, right? Serpents and scorpions, right? But because we're also looking at this poem, we stumbled upon this little factoid that scorpions were considered serpents.
Yeah, I'm reading also Dartmouth. What is this? Milton.host.dartmouth.edu. And yeah, one of the things that they have is hydrus and elops, and they have the little hyperlinks here, which is useful for me. So hydrus is a water snake, okay, but elops is a swordfish, according to Dartmouth. So even that is okay, it's elongated, so it's a snake. Yeah, it's a fish, but it's got a really long nose, so it's a serpent. Don't worry about it.
So when you hear serpent, back in, I guess as recently as Milton's time, so we're not even talking about like biblically, but as recent as the 17th century, they weren't just talking about snakes. They were talking about scorpions and dragons and hydras and swordfish.
Swordfish, yeah. And I wonder about worms. I mean, that would fit that definition. I don't know.
Right.
So it's like the TikTok trend, right? Babe, would you still fear the devil if he was a worm?
Guys, the only answer to that is yes. Just say yes. Don't even be like, well, what kind of worm is this?
Like a swordfish worm?
Yeah. Is this WORM or WYRM? Because I've heard of like dragons are called worms sometimes.
Right. Yes.
Right? Yeah. But yeah. Okay. Well, there you go, folks. Serpents were anything and everything, I guess.
Right.
So now the palace is filled with the noise of these hissing serpents. And Satan himself has become this giant slithering dragon. And they all follow him out of the doors, and all the citizens of hell are there to greet them. But then they see that all their leaders have been turned into serpents, and then they turn into serpents. And I guess now all of hell is just serpents. And then nearby, a grove of trees sprouts up, and they're all copies of the tree of good and evil. And the serpents, they're so hungry and thirsty, they slither over and up the trees into the branches, and they get the fruit, but it turns to ashes in their mouths. But because they're so hungry and thirsty, they keep trying to eat it, and it just keeps on turning into ash. Right? This is very going back to Greek mythology, right? This is very what's the word? Tantalus, that story. Yeah.
And Midas even a little bit.
Midas, yeah. And okay, so the next thing that Milton says I am unclear on. He says they either remain that way and only return to their angelic shape for a few days out of the year, as a reminder of what they lost, or it's the other way around, where they're fallen angels most of the time, but once a year they become serpents again. Right? This is the exact text. This is what he says. Thus were they plagued and worn with famine, long and ceaseless hiss, till their lost shape permitted they resumed, yearly enjoined, some say, to undergo this annual humbling, certain numbered days, to dash their pride and joy from man seduced. So I don't know. It sounds to me like they're demons for most of the year, and then they get turned into serpents for a bit. Not the other way around.
That's what it sounds like. This annual humbling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's Snake Week, Shark Week, and they just are snakes for that week. Yeah.
Right. Snake Week 2020. Right?
Yeah. What do you guys want to do for Snake Week 2024? Oh, probably be snakes.
Oh, yeah. That's I guess we can't. Yeah, we're not really allowed to do anything else.
But does that come with it? Okay, you're going to turn into this great dragon, which sounds great. But during that whole week, you're gonna be hungry and eat this fruit that turns into dust as it reaches your lips.
I guess so. I guess these trees are part of Snake Week,
right?
Yeah,
right.
And okay, and that text that I just read to you is all we got. That's all that Milton has given us. But scholars are saying, this time out of the year is supposed to be Christmas.
So they don't get to have Christmas down there. They don't know it's Christmas there at all.
Cromwell strikes again.
humbling. I don't see anything about Christmas there.
I don't see any Christmas. It's this annual humbling certain numbered days.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
It's interesting here that he's like, hey, this is what really happened, but some say that this is but he starts doing that. Some tradition they disperse. Yeah, that's odd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
According to some people, but you're the one who's telling us what's happening in fact.
You're
supposedly.
justifying the ways of God to man. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Except for this last little bit. Yeah. So yeah, he ends. Your Keenan is right, guys. He ends this section by saying even he doesn't know their true fates, right? As some say, they spread amongst the heathens and created false religions, right? He specifically mentions Greek mythology, right? He's talking about the winged serpent Typhon, cast down from Olympus into Tartarus, right? And how that's like a corruption of what really happened.
Yeah.
Right?
But he's like, here's what really happened, but don't ask me.
Yeah, see, you can't do that, Milton. This is like those like revisions of the popular fairy tales when I was growing up, like the real story of the big bad wolf, right? Or something, or the stinky cheese man, or whatever.
The stinky cheese man, exactly.
Yeah. But it's like, but then they stayed with it the whole way, right? You're either like like leaning in. And looking over your shoulder, it's like, hey, this is what really happened, right? And then you tell it all the way through, or you're like, well, I don't know what happened. It could have been this. It could have been that.
All right. So at the end of the Stinky Cheese Man, he's like, and that's the story of the Stinky Cheese Man. But why are you asking me about it? The fuck do I know?
Mr. Milton, like, what really did happen to all the fallen angels down in hell? Did they have to stay snakes forever, or like how do you explain all the bad stuff here on Earth? Yeah, well, just some say
somehow
in these other somehow
Satan has returned.
Yeah. All right, so the force of God. So what is the solution to the problem of evil? It's like you got to buy all the toys.
But Milton, you told us to read these 12 books. You told us you were going to give us the answers.
And we're not even done yet. This is book 10. But yeah, so that's what's going on in hell. And Milton opens the next stanza again with "Meanwhile."
Right, but it's meanwhile, like Super Friends, right? Meanwhile, the Hall of Justice. Meanwhile, the Legion of Doom. It's like Ted Knight, the narrator.
Yeah, there we go. Right? Yeah. So we're back on Earth, right? Just in time to witness sin and death arrive. And Milton goes out of his way to say that Death did not have his pale horse yet.
Yeah.
But he soon would.
Right.
So Sin asks Death what he thinks of their new home. But Death says there's not yet enough here to satisfy his hunger. I think he's talking about man, right? Because it's only Adam and Eve, right? So
yeah, because Milton says not just Earth, like this is paradise. Like he uses the word paradise, where he says like they come to paradise, and there's not enough man meat around. Or that doesn't sound right, but you know. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
I hunger for man meat.
And Sin just looks at him. Like everybody, like all of creation, just like,
Yeah, all of creation. Jeez.
Uriel's up in the sun is like, huh, okay.
Llamas and and red pandas all turn around.
Yeah. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So Sin urges him first to feed on the plants and the animals while she prepares man as his best and final meal. Right. And so here they part ways. He goes off to eat all the plants and animals, and he goes off and she goes off to find Adam and Eve. And here we cut again. And God and all of heaven is watching this. And he turns to them and he's like, I knew all of this was going to happen. There we go. Milton and God. It only took us 10 books to give him George Lucas's voice. Right? This is all part of the plan. Right? Yeah. So, and he orders the angels to reshape the entire cosmos. You know, God decides that everything beautiful that he created, he's gonna reshape. Even though lots of fans really fell in love.
It treated it almost with religious fervor.
Yeah.
And they bought all the stuff.
Yeah. all the novelizations about that one blue guy in the cantina, and now what does this mean?
Oh yeah.
Right? And God's just like, no, Jupiter just goes over here now.
Just to be clear, it's Milton's God.
Yes, Milton's God, right? Yeah. We are not comparing George Lucas to Yahweh. To Milton's God.
Right.
And so he orders the angels to reshape the entire cosmos with CGI. No.
You're right, special editions.
Yeah. But it's like, and everyone's like, but God, can't we have both the special editions?
And we'll give you money for both of them.
We will give you praise forever and ever, amen, if you just let us have the old versions alongside the new version. But he is a jealous God. He doesn't, because that would be
right.
That would be admitting that they like the old version better.
Right. I like my version.
You're just, I work in mysterious ways. So thanks to the special editions, we now have 4 seasons, and the Earth is plagued with like extreme temperatures and wind and storms. But they look really cool, I guess.
But what you're not thinking, this is a story for children.
Yeah, right. And also now, the planets, the angels change the motion of the planets so that they will sometimes align in bad ways and influence the Earth, which I think Milton is talking about astrology now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like Mercury and retrograde and all that stuff, right? Which, remember, folks, like these are 17th century philosophers, right? Not scientists. So the line between astronomy and astrology is a little blurry, right? And there was actually a division between natural astrology, using it to like predict the fate of the Earth, and judicial astrology, which was used for like individual people, and that was considered heretical, right? So you were like burned as a witch if you were doing judicial astrology, but not natural astrology, apparently.
That must be what he's talking about. It's a whole lot of it. I mean, it's a huge section.
Yeah.
But he's talking about, Taurus and Leos and Virgins.
Yeah.
So that must be really important to him, is my point.
Yeah.
To explain why astrology exists. Like, why would God want that to happen? Well, it's special edition.
Yep, there you go. Right. It was all part of the plan.
Well, what's your sign, real quick?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Gemini.
You're Gemini. Okay, let's see what God has wanted for you today, according to Milton. All right.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Your electronics will buzz with plenty of activity.
No, don't say that.
As the moon continues its journey through Aries, dearest Gemini, elevating your popularity while filling inboxes.
Ooh.
Just remember. Just remember that you don't have to respond to every message right away. Set boundaries in order to focus on your own needs once Venus enters Pisces later today. This
good.
Planetary placement also straightens your love life and professional relationships, especially when you seek partners you could build with. Introduce yourself to establish connections you've been hoping to forge when the nodes of fate stir this evening. Just remember to keep healthy expectations when Chiron stirs tonight, whatever the hell that means. But that's what Milton's God wanted for you.
I'm glad my nodes are healthy.
Oh, mine is much briefer.
Oh, really?
All right, I'm an Aquarius.
That's good for comedic effect.
New ideas flood in under the Aries moon, dear Aquarius, helping you take charge conversationally. Well, not when we're doing Paradise Lost. I don't know what the hell's going on. While navigating important meetings. Use this energy to kickstart projects and personal goals, leaning into the power of your mind and positive thinking. The atmosphere shifts later today when Venus enters Pisces, helping you find harmony and emotional security. Pay attention to your thoughts when the nodes of fate and Chiron stir tonight, seeking guidance through a wise friend or higher power.
It's those nodes again.
So, yeah, that's what Milton's God had in store for us.
Yeah. Well, Keenan, just for funsies, let's do one more. Let's just do a random one.
Oh, I closed the window. Hold on.
No!
All right. So who else do you want to read about?
So anyway, like, we're just going to freak one listener out, like real good.
All right. I'll do Scorpio. I don't know.
All right,
I don't know
Scorpio.
if there's any Scorpios out
or,
there.
Or according to Milton, Serpio.
That's right. All right. Serpio listeners out there.
Yeah.
Fully embrace the hustle and bustle of a fresh work week, dear Scorpio, as the moon continues its journey through Aries in your solar 6th house. This luminary placement increases your efficiency and ability to work with others, as God wants. Though you should be mindful of supporting your physical self with healthy choices. Venus migrates into Pisces later today, bringing sweetness to your love life and creative endeavors throughout the coming weeks. If you're on the hunt for love, a new flirtation may be on the horizon.
Ooh.
Do something nice for your body tonight when Luna crosses the nodes in Chiron to offer refreshment and healing.
All right.
All
I mean, I
right.
think, it's crossing the nodes. That's all it is.
Just remember, do something nice for your body tonight, Scorpios.
Yep.
Astrology.com.
Mm-hmm. No. That was us.
Oh, that was the Lord thy God.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Speaking through us. Yeah. For I am the Lord. But yeah, okay. So the universe as we know it is a result of this reshaping, including all the plants and animals of the earth, right? Who are no longer friendly herbivores. They now eat each other and are either fearful or hateful of man. And we cut to Adam and Eve, and they have either seen this or felt this. They somehow understand that like all of this has happened. And here, Adam has one of the longest soliloquies I think we have encountered so far, even longer than Satan. It is 3 pages of solid text. And again, right, I like the idea that like after the fall, Satan's not the only one making soliloquies, right? But yeah, so Adam is lamenting their fall from grace. He goes through all the stages of grief in this thing, and he cries for the future generations who have to live in this world, and he wishes for death. He says he deserves it, and it would actually be a blessing, even though he admits he still doesn't know exactly what it is, or, what comes after it, if anything. He has accepted this as his destiny, and he wants it. He curses his birth. He curses death for not taking him immediately. And Eve tries to comfort him, but he turns on her angrily and says, "Out of my sight, thou serpent. That name best befits thee, with him leagued." He says this is all her fault. She and all women are forever joined with Satan and will tempt and corrupt man from now on. And he wonders aloud why God would make this final creation so twisted and evil. And you can really sense Milton's own insecurities creeping in here. As Adam predicts that man will never get the girl he, wait. And man will never get the girl he wants. Either she'll marry a worse guy, or their parents will forbid it, or he'll just meet the perfect woman too late, and she'll already be married to someone that he hates. Adam is saying this. Yeah. And at this point, Eve doesn't get up and leave like she should. Instead, she stays and begs his forgiveness. She says she still loves him and asks that there be peace between them in what little time they have before death. And she says she will ask God to lay all the punishment on her instead.
She's been cursed for subservience, right? That's how we have to read that, right? She's such a different character now because she's been cursed.
Yes.
Yeah. But
remember, folks, like in the early books, right? She was speaking up for herself.
Right.
She was and she was correcting Adam, right, in these other places,
right? And they had debates. It's like, yes, I see that, but what about this? And he was like, well, I see that, but what about this? So, but Eve, it's Tammy Wynette time, baby. Divorce, which hasn't been invented yet.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, so
it's like sin and death and divorce as characters down there. They're just in by the gate.
Divorce is just like, the little, like the distant cousin. Right?
Well, no, divorce looks like you, listener, and that's the reason your parents didn't make it through. Yeah, because of you. We're
all, Mr. or Mrs. Scorpius. or Serpio. I wonder why we read that horoscope, right?
Mm-hmm, right.
Yeah. No. But yeah, so she begs his forgiveness, and all of Adam's anger evaporates at seeing her so distressed. And he says that if praying really could change their fate, he'd pray longer and louder that all the punishment falls on him. But he says it can't be helped, and they must work at their love and hold each other up until death comes. And then Eve has an idea. She sort of preps Adam for it. She says, I know you don't trust me in the way that you used to, but let's have no secrets between each other from now on. And she goes on to describe death as this monster that wants to eat their children, which in this version he actually is. And she says if they don't have any children, they can't be eaten by death. And then she goes on to suggest that they kill themselves, ending their line and cutting his feast short, right? Quote, destruction with destruction to destroy. So yeah, so both of them are now talking and thinking about death. Even before death has claimed them, it has infected their minds and their hearts. Thankfully, Adam rejects this idea. He says, to kill themselves would be cheating God yet again by trying to get out of their punishment. Also, he says, besides, if they try to end it now, or if they don't have children, the second part of that prophecy won't come true. The part about, their children bruising the serpent's head. And I can't be certain that Milton is implying this, but I read Adam's suggestion as him saying that they should not give up, but should continue loving and living in spite of and in the face of death and Satan. And that will be how they win against him. They will continue to find happiness in each other, in their children, in God, in the world. And then he starts to cheer up. He's like, besides, God is still with us. He has helped us this far. He has clothed us. He might take pity and teach us how to survive in this new world. And he even starts to speculate. We got, a little bit of Raph's influence rubbing off here. He's like, well, he makes fire by concentrating the rays of the sun or by rubbing the clouds together. I think he's talking about lightning. And he says, I wonder if we could do that.
So you think Milton is saying like they're going to love and live despite what death and Satan have, right? I think maybe as an Englishman, Milton is saying like we will live our entire lives in spite. Like that. So, that's Satan fucked us. So we will, and our children's children will fuck him back by living.
Yeah. So folks, just remember that live, laugh, love is a middle finger to the devil. Right.
Is there anything more English than that?
Yeah. It's like it's not the pleasure you take in the act of loving your significant other. It's the knowledge that it'll royally piss Satan off and ruin his day.
Well, no, it's very British. Like, oh, darling, do you think we should make love tonight? And the wife is like, will it give anyone the piss if we do? No, I suppose not, darling. Okay, well, we'll circle back to this next week.
Yeah. I say, I really must take Satan down a peg this week. I believe I'll donate to charity. I'll adopt a small waif. That's what they call it, right? Like a waif, or like an urchin.
Yeah. You're right. It's a gutter snipe.
A gutter snipe, and I'll give him 2 helpings of flavorless porridge. But yeah, folks. So this book ends with them choosing life and happiness in the face of death, and going to the place where God had judged them. And I like this detail. They don't just ask for forgiveness. Milton says, quote, and both confessed humbly their faults and pardon begged. So Yeah, they ask forgiveness, but first they own up to everything, which, remember, that was the first sign of the curse, was they were blaming each other, blaming the serpent, blaming God. And now they are humbly confessing their faults. And Milton doesn't say sins, he says faults. And it's plural, meaning, at least to me, they aren't just owning up to eating the fruit. Because I feel like if that was it, Milton would just say, they confessed their sin, singular,
Mm-hmm.
but them confessing their faults, plural, suggests to me that they are also owning up to everything that happened after that, right? The bickering, the blaming, the pride, the selfishness, all the stuff that is now in them and is part of them. They are saying, yes, that was me. I was spiteful towards Adam. I said cruel things to Eve, right? They're not blaming Satan for those things. They are admitting that it was them. And I like that we end with this, because this is the thing that if Satan were here spying on them still, he'd be so puzzled by this.
Mm-hmm.
This is that one human trait that eludes him, right? And that's the ability to change of our own free will. And yes, many theologians argue that angels also have free will, right? Satan's a perfect example of that. But unlike angels, humans undergo a process of moral and spiritual growth, right? Human life is a journey of learning, of making choices and seeking forgiveness and redemption. It's why we love those characters. It's like Ebenezer Scrooge, right? From my absolute favorite story of all time, right? Or, we were just talking about, Darth Vader, right? Is a perfect example of that, right?
He's perfect.
He's perfect.
Leave him alone. Right. Don't do anything to him.
You hear that, God? But no, I like that, because humans are like incomplete puzzles, right? And as they go through life, they pick up pieces and add to themselves, or reject pieces, or replace them with new ones, right? They make a whole new puzzle sometimes, right? Nothing is fixed. Nothing is, written in stone. Angels come with everything already in the box, right? Or it's like a photo versus a painting, right? The photo is already perfect, right? But the painting is a result of many years of practice, many years of failed attempts, right? Bad paintings, bad sketches, all leading up to this painting. And this painting isn't even the end if the painter chooses to continue learning, right? And folks, I love my boy Satan, right? That's why we're doing this poem. But let's be honest, compared to Adam and Eve, how much has the Satan of this poem changed from when we first met him in book 1? It's monologues and soliloquies all the way, right? He's either making a grand speech to his buddies, or he's immersed in his own self-pity, right? Multiple times he is given the chance to turn back or to make the better choice, right? He has the moment of reflection when he first wakes up in hell, right? And he decides, no, better to reign in hell, right? He has his, to be or not to be evil speech when he gets to Eden, right? But he chooses to go forward with his plan. He almost calls it off when he sees Adam and Eve for the first time. And he almost calls it off again when he catches Eve alone. But every time he is given a choice, by virtue of his free will, he deliberately chooses to stay the same. That's the one thing that he's proud of, the one thing he is able to cling to all throughout the poem. He even says it explicitly to the fallen angels in book 1. He says, all is not lost, the unconquerable will and the study of revenge, immortal hate, and the courage never to submit or yield. And he says it again in his reign in hell speech. He says, farewell, happy fields where joy forever dwells. Hail, horrors. Hail, infernal world, and thou profoundest hell. Receive thy new possessor, one who brings a mind not to be changed by place or time. So throughout the poem, he is actively fighting against change, even as he continually changes his physical shape with all these disguises, right? He goes from, little angel baby to bird, to beast, to toad, to possessing a snake. And you can see him stooping lower and lower and degrading himself more and more in this pursuit for revenge, in this pursuit not to change. And I think we're meant to see this as, romantic and heroic in the early books, right? But as the poem goes on, just like those pictures by Doré, I wonder if we're supposed to see him becoming worse by refusing to change. By not changing, he is not growing. And the opposite of growth is decrease or decay, right? And so I love how at the end of all of this, Satan has, dodged every bullet. He has successfully refused every opportunity to change, right? He has done a superficial version of Joseph Campbell's hero journey, right? He sets out on the adventure. He crosses the threshold. He has a very literal road of trials through chaos, right?
Uh-huh.
He meets allies or helpers. Some of them are willing, some of them are tricked. He has the ordeal, right? That's in Campbell's hero journey. That's the big struggle. That's the fight with Vader, right? The fight with Voldemort, right? The encounter with the ghost of Christmas future, right? And Satan wins this ordeal. He returns with his prize. And all that is great. It's point for point. Like if you look at a map of the hero's journey, he did all of it. Except the one thing missing is the death and rebirth, right? The death and the resurrection. That's a major part of the journey, right? And, more often than not, it's figurative, right? The death of our old self and the rebirth as the wiser, more mature version of yourself, right? And the reason that's missing from Satan's hero journey is because that was also his ordeal. That was his big bad, right? Was change, was death and rebirth. So more than the angels, more than God, the thing that he struggled with and successfully killed was his conscience, which means his old self never died and he never changed, and he returns home exactly as he left it.
Except a snake 1 week out of the year.
Right, except a snake 1 week out of the year, right? Let's not forget that, right? But what fascinates me is that he thinks this is a victory. He comes back to hell. He's like, I did it, right? I went on that whole journey and I didn't let anything change me. And again, to bring it back, if he was still in Eden watching Adam and Eve now, he'd be profoundly confused. He'd be like, but you guys lost. You lost your former selves. You lost Eden. You lost paradise, right? He's talking to Milton now. He's like, that's what the title means, right? Paradise lost for them, right?
I'd say it's kind of up for interpretation. But
well, Milton, that's my interpretation, okay? But Keenan, what did you think? What did you think of like this whole book and that whole thing?
Well, that's interesting. Now, like, if he doesn't learn that might fit within like a Campbellian like hero's journey, like because that's where Campbell sort of struggles, is in like the tragedy, right? He's always talking about like these positive changes, and it kind of gives some lip service to the the tragic form of it, but often it's like, okay, what gets if their main character doesn't have this death and rebirth, this resurrection to become stronger than they were before, to learn this lesson, to return with the elixir, as Chris Vogler says, then like that, oftentimes that's seen through a different character. So sure, Hamlet dithers and doesn't quite learn his lesson, but Horatio does, right? So I wonder now, I don't know what happens in book 11 and 12. Is this Adam and Eve learning the lesson that Satan should have learned? And
I wonder.
I hope so.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens in book 11 and 12.
But I like that this book ends, we see them like beginning to learn it. But yeah, folks, we still got 2 more books. And I'm interested to see how Milton wraps this up. But for now, that is all right. Well, that was great. Thanks, past Lester and Keenan. Well, folks, I have been Lester Ryan Clark, both in the past and in the present. You can summon me on all the socials as Lester Ryan Clark.
And I am immune to the bounds of time, and I've been Keenan Diaz, and you can invoke me on Instagram and Letterboxd at Howdy Keenan.
Yeah, find more of our shows and other really cool podcasts at True Story FM. Like us on Instagram and join our Facebook listener group, Dante's Ninth Circle Sushi and Karaoke Bar, or feel free to drop us a message at thedevilsdetails@gmail.com. Wouldst thou like to live deliciously? We're not even asking for your souls. Just give us a 5 pentagram rating on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to our show. That and sharing the show by word of mouth or on social media helps our little podcast grow and find more cool people like you. All right, folks. Until next week, love and hisses. Mwah! Greatest decision I ever made was I get 10% on all the holy relics.
Yes, George, you're very wise. You're very wise.
And you notice, this sacrament is almost exactly the same as this other sacrament, but there's one little extra step here.
So you're saying you had planned the entire time for Jabba the Hutt to be a little worm monster, but then you also are showing us these scenes where he wasn't a worm monster; he was just some guy.
Oh! I can top you there. So, Lord, whose ways are mysterious to me, and I cannot fathom. For I am a simple herder of nerfs. Just out in the fields tending to my nerfs. But you're telling me that you knew that Luke and Leia were brother and sister, and you still had them kiss.
Mysterious ways, really.
In the same movie, Keenan. So we're not even talking about, because I misremembered it. I thought, and this is, blasphemy upon blasphemies. I thought Luke and Leia kissed in episode 4, and I was like, oh, of course. Well, they didn't write the script for the next one yet, right? But no, it happens in that one. In the Luke, I am your father happens in the same.
Right.
Or,
Chewie's watching them do it.
Yeah. But when...
And Chewie's like, I don't know about this.
But is that the same... Like, do we find out that Luke is Leia's sister in Empire or Jedi?
In Empire Strikes Back.
Well, no, that's Darth is Luke's father.
Oh, you're right. Okay. I see what you're saying, yeah.
For some reason, I conflated them, and I thought, we find out both of those pieces of information in one movie. I think.
Right. I guess we don't know that Vader is Leia's father.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the kiss was.
I guess so.
Unless, like our God says, he knew everything from the beginning. Which, if that's true, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you saying? Yeah. Anyway,
and why doesn't Chewie get a medal?
We just have to believe, I guess, Lester. The Lord is my nerf herder, and I shall not want my commemorative Jar Jar Binks cup runneth over.
Yeah. He maketh me to lie down.
Right, on my Empire Strikes Back sheets.
Which I had those when I was little. Did
oh, yeah, I think everyone did. Yeah.
And Luke went out into the desert for 40 days, which was easy because, he was on a desert planet. So all of his days, including those 40, were in the desert. Yeah.
Lo, even though I walk through the valley of the star of death.